Let's call the meeting to order, and first order of business is public comment. We do have one member of the public on. If I'd like to speak, raise your hand. Not seeing, we will continue to move forward. Next item, review and approval of the minutes from January 27th. They were distributed by Jennifer. Let's take a motion for their approval.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second. Any comments? Tracy, you all right with them? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Perfect. Thank you very much. Subgroups. Soil testing on wetlands. You're up, Doug.
Okay, so we sent the draft scope of the septic study we've talked about in here to kind of characterize the septic capabilities of most of these properties, maybe combining properties based on historical data and potentially identifying some locations that may need test holes. So that went over to Jacobson and Associates for their review and comment. My partner, Chris Rickson, is traveling. So we're gonna give Jacobson a couple weeks to look it over, and then we're gonna have a meeting in the last 2 weeks of February. TBD after the 18th to potentially refine that, see if it's within their capability and potential timeframes.
Okay. And I think it's important, when we talked about it at the last meeting, we then kind of made a couple of modifications to it as we're kind of looking at the phasing of it rather than having everything all done at once. And so they're looking at that and also letting us know how much information they were able to generate through the Thrive report. So we'll have that. So we'll have that information as well.
That's correct.
You have two spaces.
Any other questions on that?
Okay. Gordon, am I?
I'm sorry.
Take a deep breath.
I'm like, I'm on the text chain with a help desk that has been going on for 45 minutes.
Okay, next is our business and property owner outreach, and I continue to try to get a hold of a couple of the major folks that I've gotten with. We've got scheduled meetings, but I don't have a report on that. I don't know, Tracy, whether you've got a report that I've been able to meet with anybody else along the way there.
No, I haven't got anything exciting.
Okay. All right. Anybody dropping in and talking to you these days?
Not these days. Yeah. I'm hoping I'll get out a little now that it's not sub-zero with the wind chill. But I did when I was, as I've been going back and forth, I've been thinking about where we might hold a meeting. And if we want to hold a meeting along here, from what I can tell, it's like I said, I'm happy to hold it here. The only place I see that's big enough is the cheer place, unless whoever is in the big building that they kind of, in the next to the Ford, the big building that's part of the staging area, but I doubt they would want to host anything. So, because I don't even know who the owner is there.
Yeah, I don't know if they've got a conference room there. I did talk to Linda Silverstein, who is the owner of Gladeview.
Oh, nice.
I asked her whether she had a conference room or a conference space that could accommodate. And she said, yes, she thought it was possible. It wouldn't be, it wouldn't be private, she said. I think a space where she would be kind of, it's an open area and they would just be putting in chairs and stuff like that. I said, this isn't a private meeting, so it's not, that's not critical.
Yeah,
So anyway, I'm supposed to be meeting with her maybe next week and hopefully over at Glade so I was gonna try to take a look at what that potential space would be, because that would be
that's
great.
great. Yeah,
They have parking and they've got all kinds of things,
nice.
so we'll see.
So
Okay.
when were you thinking of doing?
Well, I wanted to do this in late February, but I'm thinking I'm gonna have to, I think we're just gonna have to put a time down and say, this is when we're gonna do it. I've been trying to determine when we're gonna have a sufficient amount of information to make it useful to invite people. And,
Sorry.
this question about the soil stuff, talking a minute about the streetscape, talk a little later on in the agenda about zoning and zoning regs. So I think maybe once we get through tonight's agenda, maybe we will have a better idea as to when, and then I would like to schedule a minimum of 3 weeks from, wherever we are. So, if it's work today, then maybe it's sometime by March 15th. Okay. Streetscape. So we're very similar in the soils world. We have been in communication with Jacobson, who did the road analysis. They've taken the information that we asked them to take a look at, which was that option coming out of Civic Moxie study. They've shared it with their traffic consultant, and they have come back to us with a group of questions, which Casey, we just got them this afternoon or late this morning. Casey and I need to talk about them. But in quick look at them, there does not seem to be anything other than kind of yes, no. It's not like there's a lot of that we've got to do much. We've just got to give them clearer direction as to what to do. And then they will turn around and give us what the price would be to be able to do the study. The one thing that was that I had asked them to preliminarily think about was not only the idea of having the multimodal way along Mariners Way down past Gladeview, but then to continue something down Ferry Road. Just so it's not a road to nowhere, that we're actually trying to get to the river, being the gateway to the river. And they raised a couple of questions in there that in this email that they sent Casey and me about whether that was going to be possible, because apparently there's a point where there is just wetland, where the Ferry Road goes right over wetlands in a 100-year flood zone. So they were thinking that the ability to get all the necessary approvals to do anything might be pretty tough. So we'll just have to wait on that and see. But I think I think if we're put this multimodal way in, one question is being able to hook and go down to the river on the backside.
Next to the train tracks.
Yeah, you're right. Your idea, which I think is a good idea, and that may be the way to do it. We may have take a left here to go to the get to the bridge and go over the bridge to Old Lyme, and take a right here down Rome Tree to get onto the pathway to take you down to something along there.
Yeah, and I'll just add the scope that went to Jacobson for the septic capabilities includes the feasibility of the pedestrian path parallel to the railroad.
Right.
So it's from behind the John Deere dealership all the way to the bridge. It's about a mile. So, it would hook right in where you're talking.
Right. So that might be the way to get there rather than trying to get down Ferry Road. So we will learn more as we move forward. But anyway, Casey and I'll get back to them. And hopefully by the time we get to the next meeting, we'll have a scope and a potential price associated with that. And that's probably a good segue for one thing that's not exactly on the agenda, but is part of this, and that is I have been in communication with the first selectman about how far we can go in the way of issuing RFPs and spending money and those kinds of things. And being that we are a creature of the Board of Selectmen. And so he's invited me to come to the meeting on February 24th, which is a 5 o'clock meeting, to talk about where we are and what we're doing, and just to inform the Board of Selectmen prior to our actually formally issuing any RFPs. So that will be so that's 2 weeks from tonight.
Or issuing work, like to Jacobson.
Right, right. So we will,
Do,
yep.
that was gonna be my question. So do these things all have to go out to bid or?
Well, we got two,
Or can does Jacobson as like sort of an entity of the town automatically take them on?
there are, there's two answers to your question. First answer, I'll give you the generic answer. Interestingly, within the town charter, specifically when you are looking for these kinds of help, that's specifically exempted from the bid requirements.
Okay.
So, we would not have to go out to bid. Does it mean we wouldn't go out to bid? Different question, but we don't have to go out to bid.
Okay.
Jacobson also serves as the town engineer.
Right.
So I think in the case of what we're doing with the soils analysis is we're asking them as the town engineer to look at the RFP and the scope that Doug and Chris have put together and comment on it.
Right.
And then they can tell us whether or not it's within their capacity at this point to be able to do. So that's that. On the streetscape, they did the road analysis, they've done a lot of stuff, so we're just moving forward with them to be able to do that, but if, we won't have to put that out.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so anyway, so meeting with the Board of Selectmen on the 24th, hopefully we'll get the okay on everything we're doing, and then we'll just continue to do it. So the next agenda item is this issue that I raised right toward the end of the last meeting, which was kind of looking at what we are going to. Here we go. Looking at what we are going to do for 2026 and how we move this whole thing forward. And this starts with me spending time trying to figure out how do we get developers interested? How do we, what kind of incentives do we need to offer? And so I've met with a couple of developers to ask them exactly that question. And the message back to me is what the development community really wants is they want a level of surety that if they're gonna move forward with a development plan, that's something that the town wants. And, the best way to do that would be to create for lack of a better term right now, my term, a Mariner's Way zone that would allow for the kinds of things that we want to see take place. So with that in mind, and Casey has brought up a couple of times about what's the cart and what's the horse relative to trying to get, so let me see if I can get this a little bit easier for people to read. So if you remember, we've had 3 at least different studies in the last 12 years around Mariner's Way. First one was in that 2013, 2014 timeframe. 2013, a consultant group, economic consultant group, Bartram and Cochrane, were asked to come in and do a financial feasibility study and to look at what was the kinds of economic activity which would be possible along Mariners Way. So this was the synopsis of their report. You can imagine, you may not imagine, but if Chris Costa was here, she would tell you that this first one of the idea of doing something with a big box was taken off the table immediately. The population of Old Saybrook is not interested. Was it feasible? Yes, but it's not something that is going to be done. But then there was a number of other things, retail, apartments, flex office space, hotel they were in maybe, and then just pure office space was not something that they recommended. But anyway, that was 2013. Then 2014, we went, Civic Moxie came in with the work that they were doing. They were saying, okay, what do we need to do? Create this branding, marketing and recruitment plan, zoning modification, public investments and placemaking, all of which here we are in 2026 saying we want to do. So what were their opportunities that they presented? One was residential multifamily development. Second one was office development, though they were, I think to some extent looking at a different office environment. This was pre-COVID, and the office environment has changed pretty dramatically from where they were in 2017. Going out and getting bioscience or other industries, specific industries to come and locate here, and then tourism, recreation, and what I would call it, that was where they were putting in the hospitality, like food and those kinds of things. So that was 2017. Fast forward to 2024, and this is the Des Moines plan, and Des Moines saying, okay, what we need to do is targeted uses of housing. Here we are again, predominantly looking at multifamily. They're now, dining and retail, hotel, idea of some kind of health or fitness, and then marine businesses were what they thought would be the targeted uses. So that's a long way of my saying, I don't think this group needs to spend a lot of time trying to figure out what are the targeted uses in the sense of going out and doing any more work. We just, I think, need to come to an agreement and maybe refinement of some of these ideas. For instance, when we look at housing, are we only thinking about multifamily housing? Are we, what is there other housing that if we were to create a zoning reg, we would want to permit? The dining and retail. Had a conversation with Jennifer earlier about this, and one of the things that she raised was, is it possible, and I look to you, Casey, is it possible as we think about zoning and something like dining and retail, that we could create or make sure that we're not creating a competition with Main Street and Spencer's Point? Is there a way within the zoning regs to define what it is we're looking for here that would keep that from taking place? Hotel, I'm not convinced that a hotel is possible there, mostly from this the wastewater side. So unless we get something back from the wastewater analysis or the soils analysis, or we can figure out a way to have a centralized wastewater collection area, hotel may not be unnecessarily possible. And then the health and recreation, I think these are all things that we can talk about. But anyway, I'll stand back and say the real question for us right now is a question of do we want to embark on a plan that would, create a zoning reg that is focused on Mariners Way and start a process to get there? And what would be the steps to do that? So the first question is, do we agree that this is what, we as a committee should be spending our time on at this point? Any objections?
Well, I think it'd be good to start talking about it. I don't wanna get into the solution now, but I didn't see it as one big zone,
Okay,
right? It's, potentially you could have housing on each end. What we don't want is one big zone where everything can be in it. And then it ends up a smorgasbord of, John Deere next to the apartment building with a restaurant next to it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It needs to be integrated, it needs to flow, and I think we can shape that with, I look at you, you're more of a zoning expert than I am not, but. If we open up the housing on each end of the properties, I think on the south side, that would be good. I also go back to, and it's probably taboo to talk about it, but the big wetlands area across from Mystic Market, that was created when the highway was put in.
Mhm.
That should be an eligible piece of property for this plan, it needs to go through wetlands, but it was wetlands that was created. And you can do things there possibly and offset it with wetlands somewhere else.
Right, the whole concept of offset, particularly if they weren't, kind of God-created wetlands and vernal pools and that kind of stuff, that would be.
Yeah, it's
Maybe that's a
man-made
possibility, right.
wetlands, so that's my point, and so, and it's a huge piece of property. When you're talking about hotels.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. What do you think?
I mean, I think that. I think I've stated my case on some level, but yeah, I think that, and you alluded to this at the beginning, in my experience, developers want to know, the serious developers will say to you, or will say to us, or whoever, I just want to know, like, tell me what you want me to do, and then either I'll do it or I won't. Like, then I can bake it into my lasagna and my fund and, my funding layers and my design layers and all of that. And I can figure out either it works for me or it doesn't. But if we have a lot of uncertainty, so, I think this is getting sort of deeper into the layers, but like, if we want to create certainty, that's sort of a specific type of zoning, or like a specific, I think part of what we need to talk about. And obviously I think we need to engage the zoning commission and Chris Costa and some other people, but I think that the sooner we can establish a level of certainty and the more certainty we can establish so that they know, what do we expect in terms of parking? What are we allowing in terms of densities? What are we looking at in terms of like coverage and site, what can they do? Because otherwise, and I think that also means from a zoning standpoint, establishing like less special permits and less special exceptions and things of that nature, which is obviously a conversation for us to have with the zoning commission. But developers don't like that. And so I think they're, in my experience, usually willing to like go the extra mile in terms of design, in terms of, site design or design standards and things like that. If they know upfront that that's what they need to do. So if we can kind of find ways and have, like, I think we need to have a lot of the conversations about what we want to try to bake right into the zoning regulations, like you were saying. And yeah, I think the sooner we can get there, the better. I think I've sort of gone back and forth too, like, is it going to be one big zone? Are we going to do subzones? Are we going to do multiple zones? So I think that sort of thing, but I think also the conversation sort of starts with, and, you know, a lot of this is in here, but like, are we envisioning an area where people are walking and living and shopping and, or are we envisioning an area that's more
Car-based.
heavy retail, more like light industrial kind of thing, more, you know, I mean, it, like, how do we want to incorporate those things? And are we envisioning like big pieces of land where, you know, you have larger minimum lot sizes, so we're looking at sort of big substantial developments, and I mean, one thing I think we need to talk about sooner rather than later is, are we talking about mixed use? So again, are we creating more of a
Meaning retail, residential.
yeah, or whatever, some sort of commercial and residential, or I mean, technically it could be another combination, but yeah,
Yeah.
usually commercial and residential, or like recreation and residential or whatever it is. So are we doing, are we talking about that, or are we talking about separating the uses, or both? I mean, the thing with mixed use is usually that the concept, the obvious concept of like first floor commercial, upper story residential. But that's if you're creating sort of, if we're looking at like a walking area, and I think we want to, if we're going to do that, and then I'll stop talking, is think about like the kind of the identity of what it is, because that's a different, that needs to be a different identity than like what Main Street is. And I think they talk in here about like for retail, for example, the demand that could be met there is more, I think like areas that need larger spaces or are priced out at Main Street. I think those are the two kind of examples that they use. And so like recreation is another one, they need bigger spaces. So I think, well, we're not talking about big box, but we're going to be talking about, I think, different spaces than like what Main Street offers. But yeah, I think it's important that we start having these conversations now, especially because we should be talking to the zoning commission and the planning commission, and like, that takes some time
A
to have
question
those conversations.
from like what you both said. In this process, are we supposed to be thinking about, like whether something's next to a John Deere, or are we supposed to be thinking about there might not be a John Deere there in 200 years or 100 years, and so like the zone is the zone separate from the. I'm asking, I'm not actually saying my opinion. I'm just curious.
Well, I'll say, to me, zoning is forward thinking. So
Yeah.
it's like you zone for what you want to happen there, and you make it easy to do the things that you want to happen there. And then what is, you know, you work with what is. Obviously, every existing business is like allowed to remain, and you could make like special extra grandfathering allowances for certain things. But yeah, I mean, the idea with the zoning is to, and I think that there are a lot of businesses there that are consistent with what we would
Yeah.
want to encourage there. But yeah, I mean, I think you zone for what you want to happen there from a design
Yeah.
standpoint too.
That's what I thought, but
Right, but you know,
Okay.
going back to what you're saying about mixed use with commercial on the bottom, there's a lot of single story
Yeah.
commercial buildings.
Yeah.
And so, you know, somebody may want to put 2 stories of residential on top of that. Right now, that wouldn't be allowed within the zone, but we could create a zone that would allow for something.
Yeah.
So what should our process be, do you think? From where we stand today or sit, to kind of beginning to move this forward? I hear what you're saying, we need to, you know, and maybe my meeting with the Board of Selectmen is the start of kind of informing the town of our interest, and then from the Board of Selectmen, meeting with the zoning commission and the planning commission, and anybody else, and then but from the real 50-foot level, how do we move? Do we, you know, what's our first discussion? Is it around uses? Is it around? What, I just don't, it's hard for me to know how to get off the block.
I think, I mean, I think we should bring Chris into this conversation in terms of how she kind of wants to approach it or recommends that we approach it here, you know, kind of like what the process normally is here. But to me, I think maybe what we should do is kind of start running down, start with uses and kind of start running down that list of the recommended uses compared with the uses that we have, how they're categorized in our current zoning regs. And then I think that will inherently generate the conversations about like, sort of the specifics of what we want those uses to look like. And then I think the next thing is and I think it will lead us into this conversation, but then the other part is sort of what the site design is and what the design standards for the buildings are, because I think that's important, because the use, to me, the use is important. But nowadays, I think there's sort of an understanding that, I mean, use can be impactful in terms of like, if, you know, you have like a major manufacturer, the impacts of like major manufacturing next to like a residential use or something like that. But I think a lot of zoning now also takes into account a lot of like, what does the building look like? How big is the building? You know, how much of the space is it taking up? So I think that'll naturally lead us into conversations about design standards and things like that. But then I think we need to talk to Chris about how we start actually drafting drafts, you know, how we start kind of generating drafts of zoning regs based on those conversations. Because to me, I like to have like a draft something in front of me that I can run down and kind of say like, okay, I like this, I don't like this, I like this under these circumstances, like that. I think once we start like getting specifics, it's easier to kind of move forward with it.
Yeah,
So I would.
So I was just gonna say, so we could start with like a list of uses that we at our next meeting or whatever have a conversation about. You know, we run down that list and have a conversation about those uses. I think that might be useful.
good way to get going.
Okay, so I've mentioned this before, so I like talking rocks, pebbles, and sand. So we need to figure out what are the rocks, and I'm an engineer, I tend to go right to the solution in my head, but I'm open to kinds of ideas. But for example, if we said, all right, we want residential on each of the ends, okay, well, that kind, you know, not in the middle where all the industry and commercial is, residential on the ends, then we can focus on that and see where the dividing lines are. We have the commercial, industrial, kind of light industrial along the road. I'm thinking on the south side. We talked about a pedestrian walkway a mile long next to the train tracks, as long as we can go, and there's a ton of land adjacent to that. It's perfect for a park, a sports complex. You know, off this path, you can spin off public use type facilities. That's what I'm thinking. So you'd have different areas. You'd have residential, industrial, and then in this back sector, enough to, you know, maybe the town would own the path. And then the others would be good for sports complexes or something like that, a town park, skateboard park, stuff like that. And then in between, you know, there's probably some other room in there for something else, maybe more light commercial, but So we have the map, we had a big map printed at a printer, it's in Jennifer's office, we can put it on the wall and we can start marking it up and with marker or white tape or whatever and start writing zones on it or without getting to, it's not cement, it's wet cement. So it's just kind of like, I like a visual where we can kind of all stand back and see, what did we talk about last meeting? Oh, we agreed residential zones on each end and not reinvent the conversation every meeting, because
Right,
you can see that happening.
did
We need to
we agree?
maintain.
no.
Okay.
And I think the thing
You
that
think
we
on the
do,
vote?
we do wanna keep it,
I missed, maybe it was before I joined. Yeah.
and I think we do wanna keep in mind too, that we're not doing master planning. We're not buying all the properties, we're not buying the
Right,
properties, we're not deciding what goes on each property. We are deciding what the appropriate use is.
Exactly.
We might want to encourage there, and that might be based on like how big of a, so maybe
Yeah.
somebody has to like amass some properties in order to make that particular. Like you can't, like a giant recreation facility, obviously, if it has a minimum size or whatever, but I think we wanna be cautious about not seeming like we're saying, well, this is gonna go here and this is gonna go here, because
Well,
that's not
yeah,
what
I
we're
agree.
doing,
I
right?
agree.
We're saying these are the things that we wanna promote here and that we think we would like to see here, and this is how we'd like to see them like oriented kind of in terms of the zoning, but we can't say, and I don't think we as a committee are interested in saying like, this is gonna go here, this is gonna go here, kind of thing.
Yeah, totally agree. My point is, and I think we're in agreement here, it's, maybe we don't make it industrial right up to this walking path if that becomes feasible. We don't want to keep it all industrial back there. We want to open it up to something the town can use. There's a ton of land back there.
Yeah.
And it would be a shame to have it all just get swallowed up, my opinion.
How much can one do in zoning to be able to regulate for something like that?
Well, I'm sort of like spitballing, but I think one thing is we can require or incentivize. I love incentivizing in zoning. So like if you do this, then you can do more of this or something like that because it benefits everybody. So we can require or incentivize open space on a piece of property, and we could talk a little bit more. And again, this would be a conversation I would want Chris to lead us on. But so I think we could at least encourage or talk about where that open space might be on the property. Then it also gets into like a developer, if you'll let them, is going to want to make all of their open space the wetlands they can't build on anyhow, which may in some cases completely work for us and may in some cases not. So you can talk about what percentage of that open space can be wetlands and things like that. And then if you do more open space, maybe you can have higher density for your residential, or you can, there's different things you can do. So I think we can do that. I know we can do that. I don't think we can say to someone, and I don't think we want to say to someone on their private land, you have to do this here. So unless, the other thing is we could, and this is beyond the scope of zoning, but we could, as part of that, if someone designated open space and was willing to provide a town easement or an access easement to the town for like walking or, whatever a passive recreation easement or something. There could be incentives for that the town talks about, and those could be from a zoning standpoint, or those could be from other perspectives. So I think we could require open space. We can probably encourage it to be in certain locations. We can facilitate it on a variety of levels, but I wouldn't be comfortable saying we could say this part of your land is going to be open space.
Good.
But that's not even really what he's talking about, right? Like, because that's almost you're talking about like a separate place. That's continuous.
No, it could be open space. I mean, it's,
Well, I'm calling it open space. I mean, it could be, open space can be, could be a park, open space could be untouched land, you know, I mean, there's.
Yeah.
Could be just a linear, open space of 15 feet wide kind of thing.
Right, and we could say, I mean, it's like. Some places require, when you build on this street, you have to put a sidewalk out front. So it could sort of be something. It's
Like that,
kind of the
like it's the
same.
back of all these properties in a row, this.
Right,
you
right,
could- Okay. Have that easement or whatever.
right.
And then it's within that, what you mentioned, design standards a couple of times. So right within the regs, we would put in what we would want to see the buildings look like, height, setback, all of that would be all within the regs.
I mean, we have the architectural review board.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I used to be on that.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
I mean, that's totally, I think we're all showing our bias of where we're coming
Right.
from. And this, but I'm like, I don't care about the rocks. I don't care about the center. I want to do the bulk. You know, like, we should start with the bulk, guys. So, yeah, I definitely feel that way. Cause like to some extent in my mind, I feel like in a location like this, which is not trying to be like a main street because we already have a main street. I feel like you can put lots of uses right next to each other if they all look the right part. And whether it's housing or even a sports comp, I mean, there are definitely examples of places that you wouldn't, you know, they still contribute to like a street facade, even though they're very different in what's going on inside. So I kind of think that that can be a solution for that street because there are a lot of different things going on. And we are trying to make it look cohesive.
Right.
And it's not the type of thing where you wanna, it has to be walkable, so like a fake, like a facade that looks like it's walkable, but nobody's walking, like nobody's gonna be walking anyway, so it's. I don't see that as maybe an issue. But I guess I think, I like the idea of going through the uses, but I feel like concurrently, I would wanna. Almost like if we brought. Sort of like a precedent image of what we kind of envision the street looking like in the end. I don't know, to me, that would be sort of a guiding way to do it.
So if we're talking about Mary's Way as being both a place and a gateway. And thinking about it as a place, how do we make it feel and look like a place?
Well, I think like one of the things I think we talked about this as a whole, and I know Bruce and I in our subcommittee have talked about this a little bit. And I think this was done with at least the Camoin study, and I don't know if previously, but it might be useful for us as a committee to do the exercise of pictures of different types of developments at different scales and different, for us to say like, yes, no, and kind of see if we're on the same page and see if, I think that could at least get everybody
Yeah.
like picturing what's going on.
Because I'm
sort
kind
of.
of having this thing in my mind of picturing a sports complex. Or something like that, which is not gonna be mixed use, or it's not like, I can't think of anywhere where there's a sports complex that then has like residential.
Right,
Like that doesn't
right.
happen.
Right.
So I guess, yeah, I kind of do think like, to me, it's more like trying to
Oh, we
see
could
how
pull
those things could like coexist.
Yeah, well, and I think they can, I mean, I think and part of what that comes down to, like you were saying, I think is like, is everybody envisioning like a street wall with
Right.
buildings out at the road, which is more of like a Main Street type design? Or are we picturing a like lifestyle center, which is like kind of an outdoor mall, maybe with residential above it? Or are we picturing big pieces of land that maybe have sort of individual developments, but don't need to connect as a street wall in the same way a Main Street, you know, more like a
I always picture on the 95 side that it's kind of a street wall, cause there's not room for anything to be set further back, like.
This is
Right.
reminding me of sort of like the conversation you guys all had at the beginning. where
Sorry,
we
I'm
sort
like,
of had a
dragging you
vision
guys
board and
backward.
everybody brought some pictures of things
Yeah.
they liked.
Yeah.
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 Did that get like resolved
No,
and I'm
No.
opening it back up or it's
no,
just?
no, no,
it's
no,
still-
no.
Okay.
This is, wasn't the right time to have the conversation, and now it is.
Okay.
Now I think we are sufficiently all kind of on common ground and ready to take the next step together. So we've got the Camoin meeting with zoning that, we could use at the next meeting, because what they did was, they did exactly that. They took the uses and then they talked about, did it orally, and then they said, you know, do you like this, do you like this, do you like this? And they had like, you know, when you talked about multifamily, they had three kind of very different multifamily looks. And so you get a sense of not only use, but look.
Yeah,
How does that work? And I don't know, I can look at the Civic Moxie presentations, they probably did something very similar, so take a look at that, maybe put together a slideshow for us to, starting with going through the uses, but being able to envision what those uses would look like.
mhm.
And at some point, Bruce, would it be appropriate to delegate this to ARV and let them chew on it? And if you're not on it anymore,
Want it anymore?
you could be the
I
interface.
would love to do that.
Yeah, and then
Actually,
you
when I was-
leverage that
I'd be like, no,
expertise and they kind of,
Well,
I think that,
yeah,
I think that should be a little bit further down the
Yeah.
road.
yeah.
I
it may
think
not.
that's, yeah, and that's gonna have to be part of the process because, so we can build in a certain level of design standards into the zoning regulations, but there's a line, depending on, so if we have like incentive housing, you can go a little further with it. So depending on what exactly we do, there's how far we can go with zoning in terms of design standards, but in terms of full, full design requirements, that's something that, right, would be under
Yeah,
the
yeah,
architectural
think-
review board, which is technically advisory, which is also something to keep in mind, but I think here is pretty helpful, and I think the zoning commission, that I know, because I'm on the zoning commission, definitely takes very seriously the recommendations of the architectural review board in their considerations.
okay. So to get started, uses, pictures, get things buttoned up a little bit, and then begin to reach out to our other boards and commissions and get their feedback. And which is, I think, a real important step, given the, you know, the hiccup that happened as a result of the Civic Moxie, which, you know, they kind of presented a fait accompli to zoning, and zoning said, no, thank you. At which point the whole thing blew up and everybody went home. So I think doing this in a
Is that what
process.
that ended? I didn't realize that.
At one
At
of
one
the
meeting?
iterations, no, in one of the iterations, right, that
Right.
got the furthest.
So
but
Bruce,
then
do you
didn't really
envision,
get the furthest
like, we might,
because there was
like,
no-
Buy-in.
mark
There
up
was
the
no-
map
Yeah.
and then use that to talk to the other boards?
Well, I think first, just to help us envision what we're looking at, because you're right, I mean, the north side and the south side are very different, and how do we?
Yeah, I would just not want to go to zoning or even to Chris this early and just say, hey, you know, we got a blank sheet of paper, what do you want to do?
Oh, no.
Yeah, we gotta kind of say, all right, here's what we're thinking the rocks are, and
Well, and I think.
then get some feedback.
I think to Doug's point, we could, if we did some things with some pictures and things like that and sort of relived that as a group. It would also be helpful to have the map up because people might say I picture that one on this side of Merritt's Way and I picture that one over here or something like that.
Have you been able to put that on to various different boards, or is it still just a rolled up?
It's still rolled up. So I will try to get that organized.
Okay.
For the next meeting.
Do we just need to like unroll it, hang on that?
like foam, we just need like foam
Yeah, you need
boards.
to put
The back it.
The back, yeah.
And I was just gonna maybe recycle some of the stuff that I accumulate in my office.
And I can, we can print it again on foam board and just do it, and then we'll have a spare copy here. And,
Well, let's see what we got first.
all right, we'll give Jennifer a chance.
Okay, so I think we've got a direction, at least for the next couple of meetings, and we'll just kind of do this iterative. And let me just, I'll say what I'm thinking out loud. I think the next meeting, we continue this conversation, but with some more specifics. And then the meeting after that is maybe the meeting that we bring Chris into. Does that make sense? And say, okay, we're just getting going, our toes are in the water, but our feet aren't in the water yet. Help us and take it from here, but we will have gelled a little bit about what our.
I mean,
Good.
that sounds fine with me. I
Okay.
like, I mean, I'm happy to go farther on our own.
Yeah,
if we-
I am too.
Well,
Like-
I think that she may have a process that the town usually kind of, or that she usually undergoes in terms of generating regulation proposals and things like that.
It just feels like that's down the road though. I mean,
Well, I tell you what.
we're,
Why don't
But-
I send her a note that says,
When you.
here's the conversation.
Like, what's our?
Here's the conversation we need to engage you at the right time, help us understand what the right time is. Take it from there. Okay. So I sent out to everybody about the potential change of meeting time and dates, and I think this last conversation kind of reinforces for me that we probably need more time for our meetings than what an hour is going to give us, particularly as we get into more and more detail, therefore generating potentially more and more public comment. So Jennifer and I took a look, and there is a possibility of our changing our meeting time to 6:30 on the second and fourth Thursdays. And there isn't anything after us, so we would be able to go to 8 or go a little bit later if we wanted to do that. And does that cause anybody an inability to participate?
no, but why start at 6:30? You don't wanna start at 5:30 and go to 7 or something, but.
Yeah, my only, and this is probably my bias, I am very, home oriented, and having dinner with my family
That's a good reason.
is important. So that's why I would, I can have dinner and come at 6:30, or I can be here at 5:30 and leave at 6:30 and have dinner, but it go from 5:30, and this is, for this particular volunteer event, would be twice a month, and then there's obviously other things that happen during the month. So if I can eliminate as many missed dinners as possible, that would be best. So there's my bias.
Yeah, it works for me.
I mean, I like this. I've not had meetings that are at 5:30 before, but I kind of like them. ARB was 7:30 twice a month, 2 hours at least each time. And that's part of the reason I stopped doing it. It's too much for me.
Mhm.
So I feel like if we did do it that much, I would be not able to make it the whole time every time.
Okay. If we start at 6:30,
If we started at 6:30, I think it's more that if it's like 3 hours
Oh,
every time and
I
twice a
can,
week.
I can
If we
guarantee.
started at 6:30 and we ended at 7:30, it would be fine for me. If we started at 6:30 and we ended at 8:30, I think that would be harder for me.
As some
Or
people,
maybe-
as some people in the room know, I'm pretty strict about time. So I would say it will be the rare meeting that goes to 8, but I just want the option, and just in case we need it.
Sure.
How does that work for you?
That's actually better for me.
Tracy?
Maybe not for Mark, but.
Yeah.
Then I don't have to do bedtime.
He'll call me. Tracy, does this 6:30 work for you, second and fourth Thursdays?
Yeah, at first I thought that wasn't gonna work. I have a standing meeting the first Thursday, so I just would have trouble if we had to flex for that, but that would be unusual. Do I love staying in Old Saybrook from 9 a.m. till 8 p.m.? Not particularly, but I would do it because I also understand family dinners are important. And luckily my kids are out and we don't have a puppy yet, but when we get the puppy, I don't know.
Okay, so until we get the puppy, and I did reach out to Chris before he left on vacation, and he said he would be able to make that work. So, Jennifer, do we need to vote on that, or do you have enough information? Just
So, I just need to figure out if we have enough. I forget how long you need before you have to schedule as a special meeting. So if we're giving at least a month's notice, like for the March meetings, I may just be able to refile with the town clerk's office. But the next February meeting might have to be a special meeting because of, I don't know if we.
or we could just do 5:30 on the 24th.
Yeah.
Just, we'll have one more meeting, actually. If we do that, I would say we should plan on going till 7. Because that's gonna be quite a discussion to be talking about the uses and everybody's kind of envisioning and that kind of stuff.
So one more 5:30 Tuesday meeting?
Yeah,
Okay, and then
so,
I think if I can just change the schedule starting in March and we'll just refile. And I don't think it'll have to be special meetings, because I think we'll be giving enough notice.
okay, all right, if there's a problem, let me know,
Okay,
and we can take it from there.
So just to be clear, that meeting in 2 weeks on the 24th is that happening or we?
So it'll be 5:30,
Okay,
second
so-
floor conference room.
To 7.
Yes, but
Okay.
plan on it to 7.
and then in
then
March
March
we'll
12th.
switch.
Right. Then March will be is that
The 12th is
Yeah, the
second
Oh, yeah.
Thursday.
Yeah, yes, February is 28 days. Right. Okay, anything,
Just so you know, I won't be here on the 12th of March.
oh. Gonna be any more fun?
I do a 4-day event on Cape Cod and I work, it's all work.
Okay, besides that comment from committee members, any other comments people have? Great, thank you very much. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
I
Any opposed? Thank you very much and hope everybody has a good night.